Okay, so hey everyone, I'm here with Arty Mridul. I think I said that right.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey
He's the
everyone.
author of. Oh, go ahead.
Hey everyone. I'm Mridul. I'm the author and artist of the Tigerman Prelude. It's up on Webtoon right now, and if you want, you can read it through. It's not the proper version. I'm working on the director's cut right now because, well, it was the Webtoon Call to Action contest, and I had to draw it in 10 days. So
Yeah, it makes sense. So you're the artist and the writer on it, yeah.
yeah, I am. Yes.
So how long have you been creating comics?
If we're talking about comics that are out in public right now, I'd say my first I made in 2020 when I was 15. But if you're talking about unofficial as well, the first comic I made was back in seventh grade when I was like 11 or 12.
Yeah, that's pretty popular with artists. I'd say they had a lot of drawing experience as kids.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be honest, as a kid, you just have all the time in the world. I'm really lucky that COVID actually happened at that time because if I never got time off of school, I probably wouldn't have made the Tiger Man right now. To be honest,
It's
because I
funny you
wouldn't
say
have
that
that
because
experience.
yeah, it's funny you say that because COVID started was when I decided that I wanted to try getting into comics as well because a lot of free time and you could start sending stuff off.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all you had to do in COVID was just kind of like chill because there was like nothing you could else do. And it's better to just kind of discover what you can do instead of just sitting around. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And there were a lot of people who I think were looking for new things to experience and read and that kind of thing.
Exactly. It was a really nice time. It was like a creative, it was like a creative peak, to be honest,
Yeah,
for
it
a
was
lot of people.
unfortunate
Yeah.
though because all the big companies were pencils down and not a lot was being produced. So it was definitely a good time for indie creators online.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like a lot of the indie scene has really opened up because of it. Even when it comes to like games, there were so many indie games that got released at that time, and now there's such a huge market that I'd say is a lot bigger, considerably.
Yeah, that's what happens when you free up a lot of time for people, I think.
Yeah, man. And they have time to work on their passions. Yeah.
So you were telling me about the comic just before we started the stream. Do you want to give people a rundown of the plot and the world?
Yeah, sure, man. Like, so the Tiger Man is about our main character, the titular Tiger Man, and the entire world. This entire extremely fucked up world. Pardon my French, but that's kind of the best way to describe it. It's an extremely messed up world that. You know how we have this certain set of rules. We're like, this is right, this is wrong. But in a world where there is technically the wrong things, according to us, are right, what really happens? We think of stuff in this way that, like, okay, don't fight someone, that's kind of wrong. Don't do drugs, that's wrong, stuff like that, right? But what if that's just the norm and you're against it? This is just kind of a character who thinks that this is wrong and going against it and kind of like battling the world. All the meantime, they're discovering themselves. They're like, fuck, how do I really understand this? Am I actually right or am I in the wrong? Stuff like that.
So it's a world where being right is being wrong, is how you'd say it then. A world where being right is being wrong.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Because let's just like think of it this way, right? When we think of the medieval ages, right? There are a lot of things that happened at that time that we consider wrong right now. But at that time, it was just right. What's really stopping society from going there again? And what's really, and there, people when writing superhero comics or anything, they always take the normal world and just twist it a little. Why twist it a little when you can just make a new entire world that's just even more fucked up and discover what that does to a person?
So you were talking about manga before. How big has that been on you?
How's that have had an impact on me, huh?
Yeah.
I'd say that is kind of the biggest impact on me because I remember I talked about making comics when I was like 7 or 8, like in seventh or eighth grade. At that time, what I used to do was kind of just focus on making people laugh. So in like eighth grade, I used to do this weekly gag comic where I'd have a joke, draw it in like really cheap line paper, and circulate it around class every single Monday. And at the end of the day, we'll just like throw the paper out. after everyone's like had a good laugh.
Yeah.
But that's around the time when I discovered anime and manga. Then I was like, oh, fuck, people can do this much through manga. Like this just like opened up a whole other world to me. And that was kind of, the same story of the Tigerman, right? So uh, this character, Tigerman, has just been with me way too much, like ever since like first grade. But
Mhm.
after like reading manga, that was when I was like, oh fuck, I should maybe discover what the character arc would be like, kind of push a character to the extreme. That was when I kind of read Death Note. I watched it and then I read the manga, and I was just blown away. But it was there when I was like, well, characters can be very very great. To be honest, like manga is what made me discover that as a young kid.
Yeah.
Along with that, there was obviously the art style influence. If you look at my art style, it does have a bunch of anime and manga influence here and there. It is my own as well, but there's definitely an influence over there. Even with my use of colors, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, right? So the author Hirihiko Araki, he uses colors in a very subjective way. He's not like, oh, so the wall is white, so it's gonna be white. You're wearing a black suit, so it's gonna be black. Instead, he just twists colors. He just uses the most unique and weird color combinations just because he wants to. And that was definitely something that fueled the artistic fire in me. So when making the Tiger Man, I didn't really want to make it traditionally colored as all comics are. I was more like, I'd rather just focus on the mood instead of just being like, oh, so his suit is orange, so it's gonna be orange. But instead, let's just like use tones of red because it's supposed to be more frightening, more hell-like.
So one of the things I'm curious about is there a big Indian comic book industry, or would you say manga's more popular there?
To be honest, I'd say the Indian comic book industry is really really small. To be honest, because I remember when my dad was a kid, they used to read comic books at that time. There were a bunch of Indian comics, but now it's kind of all dead. But the Indian comic book industry is, to be honest, I think it's on a revival because there are a bunch of kids around my age who are into manga and comic books, and they're making a bunch of stuff. I haven't really read a lot of it though. It's not really getting traction in India. I don't want to put any kind of labels on me, but I'd say I'm kind of like that next wave of comic books coming out of India. I'd say we're right now in like the starting of it, and I am one of those artists who are like starting it right now.
Okay, so you want to be kind of in on the ground floor of the your generation's brand of comic book creators.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's another thing, like in India, you can't just religion is a big thing as well, right? So obviously we're not really extremists, but there has been this whole like Indian cinema and all just doesn't know how to really take inspiration from like scriptures and stuff as well, because they'll just take it in the literal sense instead of taking it in the subjective sense. Instead of maybe taking inspiration about how like the story happens, what's it about, what's the philosophy behind it, and then creating a new story, what they'll do a lot of times is they'll just retell the same exact two stories over and over and over again. That's another thing that I kind of want to break, because while making the Tigerman, I did take a bunch of inspiration from Indian scriptures, Indian mythology as well. But it's so deep, and it's kind of more like I understood what's the main thing behind it, and then I broke it down and then used it in my story, so people won't really get that. That's another thing that I really want to see more in India, because to be honest, our mythology is really extensive, but it's not being used properly.
Yeah, I think that's true everywhere. The more literal you are and the more tied down to something that you are, the worse the story ends up being. And the more freedom that you take with it, the better it ends up being.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah.
So do you read a lot of American comics as well? Or would you say it's more exclusively manga and Indian?
I'd say it's more exclusively manga and webtoon. Even like webtoon is a bit less as well, because the thing is with American comics, it's not as easy to get into. That's one thing. Like a lot of times, it's just like these same exact storylines continuing from like the 1900s. It's not like a complete storyline. That's another thing. So like if I like right now, I'm reading Vagabond. So if I want to read it, it's just one story about this one character going on for like 300 chapters. It's chill. I get the entire story. But then if you're reading, comics, there's just like so many rewrites and redos and stuff, and the character does stuff that you don't really think that they're supposed to do. It just gets very annoying as well at times. I don't really enjoy that way of telling stories.
Yeah, it definitely comes off as repetitive, and there's no clear way for new readers to just jump in. And,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. But I think with
Uh,
manga, even the first volumes are a lot more accessible than in comics, where people just have no idea where to start.
yeah, exactly. Because like that's kind of the reason why I love films and shows based on comics. So I'm like, okay, so like The Boys, right? That's a purely
Yeah.
superhero comic. But I haven't really picked up a comic. I just like watch the show, and if I'm really into it, then I'll like pick up a comic perhaps. Uh, in the meantime, like with manga, I'm like, okay, I'll just like read one chapter. If I'm into it, I'll continue reading it. And manga also feels a lot more personal. That's one thing that I really enjoy about it. With American comics, it's like so many artists, so many writers are constantly like putting their own spin into it. That I'm like, it kind of takes away from that personal feel that manga has. It's like this same artist, like with Kentaro Miura, he worked on Berserk for like 30 years or something, and it shows he's growing with the character, and that gives this whole intimate feel to it that I'm really a fan of.
Well, I think it also gives people a lot more consistency, that they can trust that the story they love in part one is going to be the same story that they love when it finishes.
Yeah, definitely. Like they trust the artist and their vision.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits of webtoons is it's really easy for people to find everything in one place and just follow the whole story of your career.
Yeah, that's one thing, and also the format of webtoons. I'd honestly say that's a really really good format because it's kind of like like a movie. That's one
Yeah.
thing that I kind of articulated as. So like with the pacing on manga and stuff, you gotta like draw big panels, and that's how you do the pacing. But you can never really like let well, you can, but it's not as efficient as with webtoons, right? So if there's this whole large period of time that you want the reader to just sit in silence and in anticipation, you can just add more distance between the two panels in a webtoon, and that works, in my opinion, a lot better than just constantly repeating the same kind of panels in a manga, because then that'll kind of be repetitive for the reader.
Yeah, and I think having it formatted in a way the way you can just read it on any device, I think that makes it a lot easier as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because like if you're reading manga, I read my manga mostly on my phone, and zooming in constantly and all that stuff. It does get a bit tricky here and there, but it's at least it's still like pretty cool that you can just read whenever you want, whatever.
Yeah. So you talked about being influenced by super films and cartoons and TV shows. So are there any kind of influences from those shows on your story?
Oh, there definitely are. If anything, I'd say with movies specifically, Batman has always been a major influence.
Yeah.
I remember. Okay, so here's a bit of a funny story, right? So I've been working on the Tigerman for like a long, long time. I'd say if you're just talking about the story, I've been working since sixth grade. So when I did a major rework of the story in ninth grade, yeah. So a bunch of the ideas that I had ended up being used in the Batman, like this new Batman, right? So that kind of left me in a place where I was like, well, fuck. I didn't take influence from anywhere to make these ideas, but now they've already been used. So what do I really do? So that was one place where the Batman kind of influenced me into changing my entire story, which just made it a bunch better. Plus, I mean, the name, the Tigerman, is very, very similar to like Batman, Spider-Man, all that stuff. All my childhood, I've been watching these superhero movies, like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. I had the entire CD set back when I was a kid. I used to like watch that every day.
Yeah, I went to see those in cinema when they released. Definitely a big hit.
That stuff was so cool, man. And like, I mean, the first movie I watched in cinemas was The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And not the best movie, but I mean, it blew my mind as a kid. It was like, oh my God, he's like swinging.
Yeah, and it made you. It brought in some of the villains that the other film then used as well, which I think a lot of people
Yeah,
appreciate.
exactly. Yeah. There's
So
definitely been a bunch of influence. Also, like Daredevil, the Netflix show, that
yeah,
was a major inspiration because it's just such a good show. No show that's like 30 hours long has ever made me want to rewatch it and had me rewatch it. It's like that's 30 hours of my week that I'm not going to get back. But Daredevil is just amazing, whether it be artistically, story wise, or anything. So that's been a major influence as well.
yeah. When I was looking on your Instagram, I definitely thought of Daredevil and Batman. Kind of, I could see the influence that they had.
Yeah, it's just really cool. Yeah, there's also Wolverine. They're like a bunch of superheroes, to be honest.
Yeah, all the big icons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I was wondering, is this going to be is the Tigerman? Is this going to be like its own single story, or are you going to have spin-offs for other characters in the universe, or is it just one linear story?
It's gonna be a linear story, to be honest. I don't like this whole thing of there's so many other spin-offs and stuff. I'm
Yeah,
just focused on one single story that's focused on one character. It can be focused on a bunch of other characters as well. I like side characters, but it's kind of more focused, targeted. It's gonna already be a pretty long story. I don't know how many years it'll take me, but it'll take a considerable chunk of my life to create all of it. But it's gonna just be one single story focused on the Tigerman. That's kind of it. Then after that, I'll probably just move on to making other stories. I already have another comic book planned for now, another like webtoon, but it's a complete departure from the kind of comics I've done till now.
so that's going to be its own thing altogether.
Yeah, I just like telling multiple stories instead of just one story that I'm just constantly reworking.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way, especially if you look at kind of the like at the Image comics and that kind of thing. People definitely want to turn. They'd rather have one nice ongoing story if they could.
Yeah, like Hellboy, right?
Yeah, and
That's one of the comics that I really want to read. I'm kind of saving up to buy the entire comics and then just read it.
mm-hmm.
Partly
Yeah,
because of
Hellboy.
the Guillermo del Toro movies as well. They were like
Yeah,
so cool.
the comics are just as good. I promise. Really fantastic.
Yeah, I've heard people compare it to Berserk as well. They're like, it's the Berserk of Western comics. So I was like, damn man, I want to like read them.
Well, I mean, it's probably not as graphic as Berserk, but yeah, I could see that.
No, I meant like kind of, I guess the character way, the character arc, the character development.
Yeah, and it has that nice benefit of that's a linear story as well, where it
Yeah.
carries on a yearly basis.
Hmm.
So one of the things I was wondering is, you're the artist. So was your art style? Did you develop it all by yourself, or did you have? Who would you say inspired your art style?
I'd say there were quite a bunch of inspirations, but it's more like I just took stuff from where I liked it, but at the
Yeah,
same time, I kind of developed it on my own. If I had to name a couple of influences, it's gonna, to be honest, be a lot of manga artists
yeah,
like Yusuke Murata. He's a really big influence for me. I really love his art style. There's obviously Kentaro Miura as well. There's Koei Horikoshi as well, and how he draws hands here and there. His
yeah,
art was a lot more of an influence for me before, not as much right now. There's also Sui Ishida, Hidehiko Araki. There's a there's quite a bunch of artists, to be honest. There's also Jim Lee. He was a big inspiration for me when I was starting out as well. And this is a more of a recent and thing that I stumbled upon, like a recent artist. I forgot his name though. Have you heard of not the Killing Joke? Wait, uh, Batman Arkham Asylum, a serious house on a serious earth.
I know of it. I don't know the artist on it though.
Yeah, so the artist who worked on it, I think it was Bob McCain or something. Wait, I like check just a second. It's by wait, yeah, Dave McCain. Dave McCain.
Oh yeah, Dave
So
McKean.
Dave,
Yeah,
yeah, so Dave McCain's artwork. In that ended up being kind of similar-ish to the vibe that I wanted for the Tigerman. So now he's like a major inspiration because it's so surreal, but it's just really really fitting. If you like read the webtoon, you'd know that I was going for more of that surreal, nightmarish kind of look that Dave
Yeah.
McCain has already done. So he's a major influence as well. In terms of other artists, I'd say H.R. Giger is a really big influence. Vincent Van Gogh is as well.
So before the stream started, you were talking about the genres and how it's kind of everything. It's a lot of genres at
Mhm,
once.
mhm.
Which which kind of market would you say it's most aimed at?
Uh, I honestly say that it's more for people. It's kind of more for like the action thriller kind of market.
Gotcha.
But then there's also the fact that it's more emotional. It's kind of more of like a psychological thriller in the
Mhm.
long term, I guess. Yeah. But it's basically at the same exact kind of market of people who want to see a character grow, who kind of end up knowing the character. Mostly people around the age of like 18 and in like their early 20s, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely a good market of people who want to be they want to follow something for as long as it comes out.
Yeah, because to be honest, whenever I've written comics, I've kind of just focused on the story, less on like the market, to be honest.
Yeah.
But if we were just talking about a market, I'd honestly think that like kids, people in like their early 20s or in their 20s would probably be the best bet.
So would you say there's a lot of shock content?
I don't I don't do shock content just to shock people.
No, but
If it's
like
not, yeah, yeah, there is actually quite a bit. Like the first chapter, it focuses on sexual harassment, not sexual harassment. It's more like sexual trafficking and
mhm.
a whole like the prostitution market and all of that stuff. There's a bunch of I don't know if I can actually say this stuff on YouTube, so just censor it. There's a whole bunch of in it's all implied obviously because it's on webtoon, but there's a whole bunch about rape stuff like that and quite a bunch of stuff that I can't really mention without me
Yeah.
sounding like a psychopath.
No,
But
I think it's, when it comes to more kind of adult comics, I think a lot of people feel the same way.
yeah, there's quite a bunch of stuff. Again, like I said, it's just an extremely messed up world. People aren't really seen as people; they're seen more of as products. I
Yeah.
even did a similar thing where the main character of the Prelude, it's not actually the Tigerman. He's not the main character. I instead went with a more of a villainous vibe with him. Have you seen like John Wick, right? And pretty much
Yep.
everyone has seen John Wick. So you know how they build him up as the Baba Yaga
Yeah.
all throughout the first movie. That's kind of a similar approach to what I took, where I built this whole character up, this elusive Tiger Man, how everyone's like afraid of him and everything. But like the main character is instead one of the prostitutes, one of the victims of
Hmm.
the whole this whole prostitution gig that's going on in this city. Uh, and there's a whole bunch of like there's a whole scene where I basically imply a rape, institutional rape. But again, I didn't really show anything because that's the thing, right? Like if I just drew it out, now it's just done and over. Your brain has seen it and it's like, okay, that was like, okay, yeah. But instead, if I just kind of let you sit in that silence, just ponder about it, you're going to be a lot more scared. Just kind of my whole philosophy when drawing shock content. It's more like if you don't really see it, you'll have to like sit in silence and think about it. And if I make you think about it, you're gonna be a lot worse off.
Yeah. I think it's probably better both for you and for the readers if you leave that stuff implied, and that way you don't have to alienate people, but they also get the more kind of adult graphic idea in their mind built up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we should say it's definitely not a comic for kids. It's definitely for adults.
Oh, definitely not. It's a whole other ironic thing that my dad's best friend's kid was like, what, in like seventh, eighth grade, he's a major fan of the Tiger Man. He even drew me like fan art and stuff.
Yeah.
But even I told him that, bro, just don't read it before you're like 17 or something. But he's like,
Yeah.
I can handle it. I can handle it. I watched Deadpool, and then he was like, they're saying Deadpool, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely not for kids. I don't want kids to be reading it, but
Yeah.
we all know the kind of shit that kids actually do watch and read at this
Yeah.
age. So,
Yeah.
I mean, uh, yeah, I don't want them to read it, but if they're going to read it, I can't really stop them either.
Yeah, fair enough. So, what should we talk about next? I was wondering, obviously it's up on webtoons now, but do you think in the future you'll ever send it off to print?
I am actually thinking because the Prelude that's out right now, right? So Webtoon has these contests every 2 years. My first ever proper public comic, Aberration, was also for that contest that I made, and even this one was for the contest. But again, the problem was that I didn't really have time. I had my finals, my 12th grade finals, like in last year, and then once they got finished, I had like 2 months to work on it all. But in between that as well, I had to travel. There was a bunch of like family issues, so I actually made the entire comic. That's like that's like 400,000 pixels long. I made it all in like a month, of which 2 weeks was just like the script writing, and I drew it in like 10 days. So obviously I had to cut a lot of content out because again, it was too big for Webtoon as well. And I also had to rush the art. So right now with the director's cut, I'm going to be making it so it's like 4 chapters long. And I kind of do want to print it, like kind of self-publish it and make it kind of like a limited edition release. Because right now I
Yeah.
do have a book out that's just focused on the making of the Tigerman Prelude. It's called The Art of the Tigerman Prelude. But it's self-published. You have to contact me and then we'll talk things out and then I can print it and then send it to you. Because I don't really want it to be really public right now as much. The Tigerman
Yeah.
Prelude is supposed to kind of be like a proof of concept. It's kind of like I've got this story, and if I can, with really, really bad rushed art, have a story which people are still like kind of crazy for and are asking me for another chapter, I know that I can like work on this in the future.
Yeah, I think people definitely want to have their favorite stories in print if they can. I think with manga type things, it definitely works best in hardcover as well.
Yeah, I'm still planning on it, and I'm trying to like figure stuff out because right now I still got college. I'm not in college yet, so I've got to figure that out as well. And in the meantime, I've got my comic as well. So as I make it, if I end up finding a good place to get it printed and everything in really good quality, I'll definitely do it and sell it probably, yeah, as like a limited edition release.
Yeah, and I think it'll be really good because you're fairly young. So I think going straight into it with a webtoon already published and under your belt, I think that will help you do more in the future as well.
Yeah, I really do think so. Because when I was just like looking back at it, I'm like 18. I'm just gonna turn 19 this year, and already I've got 2 webtoons that I worked on, an American comic as well that I've done for a client, some more comic book that I've been doing. It's kind of quite a bunch of experience at like a young age. So I just hope that all just keeps going well. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. What was the name of the other stuff that you've worked on if people want to find that?
The American comic that I worked on for a client, it's not actually out, and I don't know if I can really mention it. But the other webtoon, it's not really good because I made it when I was 15. But its name is Aberration. It's on webtoon as well. The Tigerman Prelude is obviously the best that I've done yet, and I'm going to be releasing the Tigerman Prelude uncut edition. The 4 chapters in July.
Okay.
So hopefully, I see a bunch of you guys there.
So for the Tigerman Prelude, is there like a set number of villains, like in a DC comic or something like that, or is it more just general society and institutions that are the villains?
The Tigerman, there are definitely villains in the Tigerman. There are antagonists. There's this whole world. But I can't really reveal a bunch because the Tigerman Prelude is like what? It's like the prologue to the entire story. So obviously in the Prelude, I kept it really, really simple. It was just a really basic story. Have you seen Dread?
Yeah. One of my
So
favorites.
it's kind of, yeah, exactly, bro. It's such a good and underrated movie. So I was definitely inspired from that because that's just kind of the best way to do an action movie. It's like, yeah, it's just simple and it does the job.
Get
It's
straight
kind
into it.
of, yeah, that's kind of a similar thing with the Tigerman Prelude. It's just really small scale as compared to the rest of the story. It's simple. It's just about the Tigerman storming in this giant like tenement, which is kind of like it's kind of like a supermarket for prostitution. Sounds really weird, I know, but yeah. So
Well,
you kind of like storm it in.
it definitely works for the setting, you know, and that kind of cyberpunk world. I think that's the kind of thing people expect.
Yeah, exactly. It works. It works. Sometimes things can be really fantastical, but they just work. You just make it work. Yeah, it's believable. That's kind of it. Yeah. So, I mean, the prelude is just focused on him breaking into this place. He's already been breaking into all these other tenements and freeing all the prostitutes in there and trying to set an example for the main antagonist of the prelude, Michael Pierce. There isn't really a bunch of confrontation or like stuff like that. It's kind of more just setting the world, showing you how the world is, how the Tiger Man is, how everything's happening. It's kind of all the prelude is focused with.
Yeah, and I guess in a world like that, it would be kind of hard for him to convince people to do the right thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't really convince people to do anything. You've gotta just do what you think is right.
Yeah, sounds
I
like a
can't
really
really
good
get
idea.
into I can't really get into a bunch of this behind the scenes stuff because again, I'm still working on the story. I know the prelude and what's gonna happen in that, but then after that, I still have to like write the whole script because I'm not really planning on drawing the entirety of the Tiger Man before I'm out of college. There's gonna be at least 4 years probably.
Yeah, I think people can definitely understand wanting to keep aspects of the story to yourself,
Yeah,
especially for spoilers, but also not wanting to have your idea stolen.
yeah, exactly. Plus, I mean, I haven't really worked it out as well perfectly, but
Yeah,
hopefully, I'm gonna like work it all out, and in a couple of years, we're gonna have the proper Tiger Man. Yeah, and if I can get it published in the meantime, if I can have a publishing deal set up, even better. Yeah, we'll
w-
see.
would you want to publish it like domestically in India or around the world?
I want it around the world. I definitely say that I don't have as big of a market in India as compared to the rest of the world as of now. There is obviously quite a bunch of market with the teenagers in India right now because they're
Yeah,
definitely very into manga and webtoons and all that stuff. But I'd still honestly say that I've got a bigger market outside.
yeah, I
I'd
think
be willing
manga's.
to, yeah.
I was just
Like,
going to say, I think
mm,
manga's kind of a worldwide phenomenon at the moment. It's really big in Europe and
yeah,
America, and obviously Japan.
yeah, pretty much everywhere. Plus, there's also the whole thing of disposable income, right? In
Yeah,
India, we teenagers don't really have that much disposable income that we can just
yeah,
buy manga constantly when compared to like the United States or Europe, places like that.
yeah. It's definitely. I think it's definitely an uphill struggle because I've been talking to people in Brazil, and they kind of say the same thing that they really try and get their comics either usually, you know, kind of Europe and Japan because that's where they think they can sell the books.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, those are kind of places where they respect the artist a bit more, I'd
Yeah,
say. In India, there's definitely respect towards artists, but there's also that whole societal thinking of that, oh, you're doing art, you're going to probably be broke your entire life. Don't do this, become like a doctor. Yeah.
yeah,
I've had people like tell me that as well, like my own relatives and all as well. I've just been really lucky that my dad was like, yeah, do what you want to do. I'm supporting you. Yeah. So I'm
yeah. It's definitely good to have
even with,
a
yeah,
supportive
supportive
family.
parent. Yeah. But yeah, it is definitely like an uphill battle, especially if you're like in a third world country, because you got to like figure out a whole bunch of stuff yourself. A lot of times, like the comic book artists in India as well, they'll kind of, I haven't really met any. That's the big problem. I want to like meet them,
Yeah,
but
I
again,
think
it's kind of harder to find them if you're not in one of those extremely major cities like Delhi, Mumbai, or like Kolkata. Kolkata has a pretty big comic book industry, from what I've heard. I definitely wanted to visit it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the other struggles is just getting exposure on the comic and getting people, I mean, no matter what the country is, just getting people to notice you and to want to buy into it.
Yeah, that's why I'm really, really grateful for the internet, to be honest. Because
Yeah,
if the internet never really existed, I wouldn't really be making comics right now, or I wouldn't really even probably be doing art. I would have been doing art, but I wouldn't really be as good. Even
yeah, I
like
think,
the audience that I did manage to find for the Tigerman is because of the fact that I had the internet. If there was never the internet, I'd have like fans in like what, like the double digits or something, or like that many people who like read it.
yeah, I feel the same way. It's if it weren't for things like webtoons and crowdfunding, I think a lot of us just wouldn't, there'd be no way to break into the industry.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the industry is just really cutthroat. That's another thing. I
Yeah, it's the
mean,
same
there's like
thing.
so much talk about artists that get their work stolen. There's like really, really manipulative contracts, all that stuff. But the only reason we even know about it is because of the fact that there's the internet.
Yeah, it's the same thing in Europe and America. I think there's a lot of stories about being backstabbed while you're trying to get into the industry, and people don't like to they don't like to acknowledge the competition.
Yeah, they've got the same mindset of crush the competition before it really becomes a competition. So you've really gotta have extremely high willpower and just a drive
Yeah, and
to
I think
succeed.
it'd be healthier for everyone if there were more people in, and I think more people lifting up the industry.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I'm trying whatever I can, to be honest. Like, I've got a bunch of younger people kind of look up to me in terms of like art. So I kind of teach them. I'm like, I didn't have anyone to teach me all of this stuff. So I'll help you out, man. Like, come on, I'll teach you how to write a better story. I'll teach you what like the whole process is. Because I remember when I was first making first making Aberration, right? So I didn't know anything. I was like, "Oh, how do you actually make a comic? What's the steps behind it?" The only thing I had for reference at that time was Bakuman, which is another anime and manga focused on this mangaka duo that like work on making manga and stuff. So I had that for reference and like maybe a couple of videos here and there. But I just had to splice together all the information from here and there. But it's definitely a lot better if you know someone who's done it before and they can like tell you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would really appreciate that. You don't really over here, and I don't know if it's the same in India, but over here you get a lot of people who they'll study art, but then they won't really do anything with it. But then you get a lot of people who don't study art but end up being really great artists.
Mhm. We definitely do have that because right now I'm in design, so
Yeah,
I'm preparing for my exams for college, which are again that's a bachelor's in design. There are definitely the majority of people in this, they don't really want to do design. What they think is, oh, it's an easy degree. We're just gonna like draw or something, and they just got money, so they're just doing it instead of actually doing it for the right reasons.
yeah. Well, I think one of the great things about doing something like design is it's a lot more that you can do for yourself. I mean, not just the comic, but you can take on other work and raise your profile that way.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, to be honest, this design is kind of a better degree to go for than just like fine arts. Because
Yeah,
with fine arts, it's like it's just drawing. It's kind of like you're doing a bachelor's in like science or something instead of engineering. Engineering is like just the applied version of it. That's the same thing with art and design. Design is just like the applied version of art.
yeah, and it's definitely going to come in handy in a more digital world.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. With fine arts, it's just like traditional. Everything is like traditional, but like the world ain't traditional anymore, man. It's kind
Yeah,
of
it's a lot more niche.
yeah, definitely. And you gotta like know how to pick your niche. You gotta know all the new tools. Because if we make comics the same entire way as they were being made, it'll take a lot more time, a lot more resources as well, as compared to just doing stuff digitally. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people in comics who don't really like change, and they want to
Yeah.
keep doing the same thing the same way, even if it's less money.
I mean, that's kind of every industry as well. I mean, there are a bunch of like
Yeah,
film snobs as well who don't understand all the new things being done right now. But It's kind of the same with any artistic career. Artists are always going to be narcissists. They always have a giant ego, but you can't
Yeah,
really survive as an artist without having an ego as well.
well, it's definitely a very it's a very personality driven thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So, was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Oh yeah, I do want to kind of give some advice to anyone who's maybe gonna make a webtoon.
Yeah.
Uh, and first of all, that's gonna be give 3 times the amount of time to draw than you think you're gonna need, because and definitely prioritize your sleeping. That's one thing, yeah. Because when I was making the Tigerman Prelude, again, I had like what 2 weeks to draw. I ended up drawing the entire thing in like 10 days, but that's 10 days that I did not sleep at all.
Yeah.
Now, during that time, you'll be like, oh, okay, I can like manage this with coffee. But yeah, when you're done with a comic and you've been working on it for a long time, you're definitely gonna feel the effects, and it's gonna end up putting you on the bed for like a month. So definitely sleep, take care of your health while making a comic, and also focus on the story as well. Learn to write.
Yeah, I think that's all pretty great advice, and I think that a lot of people do they go into it thinking I can do everything in one kind of continuous way, and they don't schedule and they don't
Mhm.
plan ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Planning is like I'd say more important than even actually drawing it. Like knowing the fact that okay, I'm gonna write the script now, then I'm gonna storyboard it, then I'll do this many pages on this day, on that day, and it's pretty. And you always need to make sure that you have time for the rest of stuff as well. There's so many stories of mangakas who sleep like what 2 hours a day, that too in like 30-minute naps, and that's dedication, yeah. But also, it's like, do you really want to sacrifice everything else in your life just to tell a story?
Yeah, I think the guy who wrote Squid Game.
Mm-hmm.
I think the guy who wrote Squid Game was saying that he just worked on everything so continuously he lost teeth because he just wasn't sleeping, and
Yeah,
that's just not healthy for you.
yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, you gotta like tell stories. You want to tell stories. As a artist and as a writer, that's kind of the main thing that I want to do. I want to just draw all the time. I want to write stories. I want to tell them. I want to make people feel emotions. But obviously, I got to take care of myself as well.
Yeah,
Uh, the writer of Squid Game, what happened to him was like pretty similar to what happened to me. So I didn't sleep for 10 days straight. And even before that, the entire month, I never really had full night's rest as well.
hmm
So it got to a point where I was seeing hallucinations. And after everything happened, I ended up losing so much hair. I had so much back problems and wrist problems and everything. So, yeah, definitely take care of your health. I learned that the hard way, and I don't really want people to learn it the hard way.
yeah. I think that's probably the best advice you could give anyone in any career.
Exactly. And just be ready to fail, and don't dread from it. If you never
Yeah,
fail, you're never going to succeed. That's
yeah. I
kind of it.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah. There's always another chance to take another go at it.
Exactly. But if you postpone it just because you're not really perfect at it, you're just never going to be perfect at anything. The same with the Tigerman, right? So I was planning on doing it after college, but I was like, who cares? I'm like good enough right now. I think I can do it. If I just keep postponing it, I'm never really going to be good enough. And it's just going to become this mythical thing that I never do. It's better sometimes you just do something than like not do it because you're
Yeah,
not
but
good
it's
enough.
also there's definitely a balance to it where you want to do it, but you want to make sure that you're going to be happy with what comes out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So,
So, where can people find you if they want to follow you?
yeah, sure. You can find me on Instagram at Arty_Mridul, so ARTY_MRIDUL. You can find me on Reddit as well at Arty Mridul, or pretty much any social media. I also have my own website, again, artymridul.com. That's my name everywhere. So if you want to find me on any social media, just search up Arty Mridul. Yeah.
All right, I'll link all of those in the description if you want to send them over in DMs.
Yeah, sure, man. I'll send it all to you. Yeah. And if you want
All
to
right,
read the Tigerman Prelude, if you do end up reading it, do comment that you came here from this. And yeah, I
yeah,
hope to hear your
absolutely.
thoughts. Yeah.
And we should also mention that Artie is my first interview that I'm doing on here.
Oh, damn.
So, yeah, so definitely a like a milestone for me, and
A milestone
yeah, I
for me
think,
as well. It's like the first ever interview I've had about comics. Yeah.
yeah, I'm new to it as well. It's definitely it's a
Definitely an
struggle kind of
experience.
finding a voice to talk on a video.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm really glad we linked up. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And you can always come back any other time if you want to get more exposure, and if the channel gets built up, I'd be happy to have you on again.
No man, I really hope that this does really good. Yeah, I'll be back when I make the Tigerman Prelude uncut. I'll definitely be on here to kind of announce it.
Awesome. We'll stay in touch for that then.
Yeah, man. Like sure.
So
It's been a pleasure, man. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me over.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure for me as well. And I wish you best of luck on Tigerman.
Thank you, Ashley. I wish you the best of luck on your own comic as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to end the stream now, and yeah, everyone go follow Arty, and Tigerman looks fantastic.
Thank you, man.